Hello and welcome to the September 2014 edition of the TetraCast. My name is Zack Reese. I'm your host. Joining us today is David Kreinberg.
Hey, what's up?
How's it going? Simon Chun.
I am back from the grave.
Oh, it's been a couple months, hasn't it?
Yeah, I just died, and someone had the audacity to resurrect me, so.
Mysteriously quiet last time, even if we had. 2 months ago, it was you and Ron, and that was dangerous.
That was not dangerous.
Put them two together, it creates TNT. It's explosive. I can't keep up with either of you guys.
Hey,
so.
It's called SNS.
Oh, yeah, it's good. And then Adam Vitale.
Hey.
I'll never get your name right.
Hey, that was close enough.
That's good. I'll keep it going. And so joining us for this month's podcast is a newcomer for the site who's doing video content for us, Darren MacPhail.
Hey, thanks for having me. Glad to be a part of the family, so to speak.
Oh, yes, our extended family that continues to grow while the other ones kind of fall apart, as it seems.
We're a
Just
very
like a
happy
real
family.
We step over the corpses of other RPG sites as they fall, and we grow each day.
Do other RPG
Just like a real
sites have
family.
podcasts?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, RPG Fan,
RP Gamer does.
RP Gamer. I have to kind of...
We should have Mike from RP Gamer.
We talked about it, like, a while back. We were talking about doing, like, this big podcast, but, you know, we have too many people on this one.
Mike's so cool.
I guess pretty cool. But anyway...
I met Mike in person at a Final Fantasy concert. It was nice.
I remember. I got you tickets to that.
Yes, you did. That was awesome.
Got to see Distant Worlds over. Like, I'm surprised you guys. How, like, does he live close to where you are?
He lives in Tennessee,
Okay.
so he had to drive down to Atlanta, but not too far away.
Wait, I thought Atlanta was above Tennessee.
What?
What? No, Georgia. What?
Look at a map.
No,
What are you looking
I'm really
at
bad
here?
at geography. I'm really
That's
bad
what
at
I'm saying.
geography.
You realize what Tennessee is, that right?
No. Like,
South
I'm pretty
Kentucky.
sure. Isn't Tennessee, like, right below Kentucky?
Yeah.
Right. and
Georgia's like
above
almost
that,
at the
isn't it?
corner. It's right above Florida.
I'm pretty sure Georgia's right above. Wait.
What? We're moving on. We're not going to talk about
Oh, okay.
Simon's need for attention.
So a lot of shit happened in the past 30 days.
It definitely did. I mean, for how dead July was, there's a lot of things that were even announced in the past couple weeks that really turned everything on its head. And so we're going to kind of step through it a little bit. So might as well get this out of the way. The biggest release for August, at least for us, it was Tales of Xillia 2. Now, I'm sitting amongst a group of people who have all played the game. I have not touched it, although I will hopefully be playing it soon. I haven't played the first one yet, so I was going to sit back and listen to you guys talk about it. So, Tales of Xillia 2, it seems like Namco's kind of figured it out to release their Tales titles a lot sooner than they used to. Hysteria seems to be going that same route, too. So, Adam, of course, reviewed it for the site, and so we'll kind of kick things off. So you gave the game a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I gave Tales of Xillia 2 a 7, but don't care about the number. Who cares about the number just doesn't say much at all by itself. I mean, it plays almost identically to the first game in terms of its combat mechanics. So battling, of course, is what you're doing, most of the time. And it uses the link system from Tales of Xillia, where there's, bonuses for linking up. There's certain skills that affect, your link and your partner character, and then new dual abilities. And there are a couple of tweaks, though. So one of the first differences you'll notice is when you play, the main character, Ludger, has three weapon types. Swords, a hammer, and pistols, and can switch between them readily and, right in the middle of battle. So that's something I don't think the series has ever done before. And that kind of opens up the combat a little bit, because each weapon type has its own art list. So you can actually link arts from different weapons together if you're, agile enough to do that. So I think the combat was probably the strongest aspect of the game. Simon, what did you think?
I thought so this game was announced like 3 years ago?
Well, it came out 2 years ago in Japan.
Right. So when I first saw the weapon swap, I was like, man, this is all gonna be awesome, because it was sort of like Devil May Cry, and in many ways it actually really does, because a lot of the arts that Ludger has at his disposal, whether it be pistol, hammer, or swords, they're very they're very fun to use. Like, the moves look cool, and, like, animations are cool. But there's actually a lot of utility behind them. Like, specifically, like, the pistols. Like, a lot of the pistols, you can sort of zoom, like, left and right to dodge attacks while attacking. So
one thing I noticed right away was, like, in Tales games, I've always found jumping in battle to kind of be a little bit awkward. And, like, now, whenever there's, like, a flying enemy, switch to pistols and you can easily hit it. And they're usually weak to it, not always. Like, some monsters are actually, you know, vulnerable to different weapon types. But that was actually, like, one of the very specific things that I noticed was, flying enemies, if I'm playing as Ludger, very easy to switch to pistols to take them out. Whereas, you know, in other games, you kind of have to, like, kind of jump and hit them. But I've always found jumping to be a little bit awkward.
That definitely stood out to me. I mean, it's also easier to combo because you can hold, like, the L1 button and attack, and usually a lot of those attacks shifts the character up into the air anyway. So, like, they've made a lot of transitions into the air. I think it'd be nice if they actually implemented a full, like, aerial-based, like, character. I guess Mila sort of fits that niche, but not really.
They do that in older Tales games, right?
Yeah, well, like, Judith was a good example of that.
Yeah, Judith in Tales of Vesperia was definitely, you know, best in comboing in the air, and lots of skills that are that make her. And Mila, like you said, has kind of the same thing where Muse as well. So I think they've gotten a little bit better at that, definitely.
I think Emil also fits that niche sort of in Symphonia 2. But there's like a lot of minute changes in Xillia 2 that I really appreciated. Like being able to change link strategies on the fly, because normally what you have to do is you have to go into strategies and change up how your linked character responds. But here you can just tap on the directional pad to change up your link partner's like AI. So you can change it up to you. You can change up to defend yourself or sync up with your attacks. So additional changes like that helps. Like they're quality of life changes. Like they're really good.
Yeah. And I felt that, like, there was also the weakness system, which seemed, what Tales of Xillia 2 feels like, it kind of feels like it took Tales of Xillia's battle system and then kind of looked back at Grace's and said, you know, let's steal a couple of these ideas.
Yeah, so even the customization aspect of it, too. Like, the Allium Orb is a great example of that, because you get
I was more talking about the weaknesses and how, like, there's, like, so every enemy, including bosses, like, if you hit their weaknesses, you'll get, like, power hits, and you can chain those together, and it'll, like, there's actually, like, a damage multiplier that you know, jumps into play.
And if you mix it up, the multiplier increases significantly.
And, like, you can down enemies, usually when you power hit them, you can down them. And, like, for some of so I've beaten the game, and, of course, and I'm doing post-game stuff, and some of those bosses are brutal, but, like, it's kind of amazing if you can, you know, utilize the weaknesses well and combo and make sure you get the good multipliers, how much damage you can do, and it's really kind of a key aspect of some of those boss fights. So, like I said, it kind of feels like it takes Xillia's battle system and kind of implements some aspects of Xillia of Grace's, and so it's kind of
even beyond that too. Like it has a lot of callbacks. Like Xillia's skill system is taken from Vesperia. Like the customization and sort of the growth system is a combination of like Tales of the Abyss's like glyph or like plate system that they had in combination with Tales of Grace's title system. Like, there's a lot of callbacks to, like, the series' history.
I kind of disagree. I mean, the Tales of Grace's titles, well, I guess some of them were about doing certain things in battles, but it wasn't to the extent that, like, Xillia and Xillia 2 have it, where it's like, have your link partner do its ability 100 times, 200 times, you know, or whatever.
Sure. But and then, like, it's more about choosing the growth of it, though. Like, leveling up your arts and stuff like that.
I actually thought the Lilium Orb was one of the weaker aspects of the game. Basically, it's very hands-off, and you just, all right, now I'm going to have you collect water-based arts and skills, and then, like, a couple, you know, maybe a dungeon later, all right, enough of that, now go to fire-based. Like, all you have to do is just kind of switch out the orbs every once in a while, and you know.
Sure, but, like, it gives you, you can't, so the Allium Orb is, you get to select certain elemental orbs, and you draw you draw energy from them, and your character grows on that elemental orb path. But there's no plate where, or at least in the beginning, you don't start with a plate that has all elemental orbs. So you need to choose which path is sort of more important and for that character. And I think you're right in the sense that, it's more hands-off, especially when comparing to the Lilium orb. But I think the Allium orb is much more macro-based than it is micro-based, because you get to choose how your character grows in what specific area. So, like fire, I think a lot of the game.
Does the game actually tell you what each element kind of gears toward? Is that just something?
No, but that's something you notice over time. So you notice that the fire ones are basically physical attack. I believe the dark elemental is primarily magic attack. You get hints of it as you see them. Oh, okay, this one is more geared towards health or defense or whatnot. So,
I would just say the Allium orb is the eggs from the Grandia series, while the Lilium orb is just a sphere grid or something like that.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Yeah.
Well, not sphere grid. The what was the Final Fantasy 13 one?
Crystarium.
Yeah, I mean it's just taking from other games that and kind of putting their own spin on it, which I think is pretty cool. The way it went the opposite direction.
It's definitely very different. So some people might be very appreciating. It's I don't have to spend time with it. I can just very quickly,
switch out.
Switch things out.
Just equip stuff.
Yeah,
that's basically it.
Switching it was great, but I really didn't like how you couldn't see what was upcoming for it. Where as in Grace's F, the title system, you are aware what you get out of each title. So I couldn't get Resurrection until I was 20 hours in, so I was going through life bottles like a crazy guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. It only shows you the next skill, the next art you're gonna get. So. Yeah.
Well, it's up to a certain point. It shows you up to 150 elemental points worth of stuff, I believe, or something of that to that effect.
But yeah, Grace's, you kind of see all the titles for sure. Most of them, from the get go. You're oh, I want to do this to get this skill or get these stats. So that was none of the other games have really come to that.
Right.
Now, I guess my biggest disappointment in the game, and several others have mentioned this, so it's not a big surprise, is how you kind of go through the same areas that are in Xillia. They're exactly the same. They're unchanged. And, kind of even within the first game themselves, a lot of these field paths are just copy-pasted from one another.
Yeah. And there's nothing interesting in them. No interesting items, no interesting scenery, nothing.
Right. And you go through them all again, and, you basically approach them all in the same way. It's, here's a new area, so there's lots of loot spots, there's going to be chests, there's going to be holes in walls, and that's about it. And so there's it's not interesting. I mean, they're really just ways. I don't like saying padding, but just to kind of eat up some time and to have some battles from one cutscene to the next. So it's just.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And that's the worst part is that if you didn't like going through them once in Xillia, you're probably not going to like going through Xillia 2 again, because the nature of the narrative makes it so you have to go through certain areas twice over.
Right. Because
even within the game. So
Right. And I mean when I kind of think about games gameplay in RPG type games, I kind of think about them in two facets. There's the battle gameplay, and then there's the everything else, the exploration, the progression, and things like that. And I think that's where Xillia 2 really has issues. You go just from town to town and fighting battles. And some people, they might like the battle system so much, I don't care that there's nothing to explore. I just get a bunch of battles, and those are fun. It's just that I kind of wish there's something a little bit more to kind of do, I guess.
Yeah, no, I agree. A lot of the extra content is also geared towards just battling. Maybe outside the poker. I don't know how much you guys like poker, but I mean...
I know some people don't care for this, but Tales of Symphonia was my first game in the series, and while the gameplay for that game hasn't really aged very well since it was one of the first, I think one thing it did probably better than anything has since is the dungeons and the puzzles and kind of these maze-like, regions or areas to go through. And I know some people may not care for puzzles and things like that, but it was something to it was something to kind of actually think about and do. Yeah, it's so you have battling, and then you kind of have okay, how do I get to that door? How do I get to the end of the dungeon? How do I get to that chest? But in Xillia 2, it's basically, okay, I need to go from point A to point B, and that's pretty much it. So I guess other aspects of the game we haven't talked about yet, like it has a chapter system like Xillia did, but it's based around this debt that Luger finds himself in early on. So
I didn't like the debt system at all, but I understand why they did it, just because they wanted to have explicit pacing breaks.
Yeah.
To, like, separate narrative portions, but, like, the idea that you can't move on to the next chapter unless you pay a certain amount is... Like, I understand the design philosophy. They want you to manage your money outside of just spending items. They're like, okay, I need to decide whether I'm going to buy equipment or move on to the next chapter and possibly be, under-equipped. But
it also gives you a huge incentive to go through all the game's side quests as well. Because otherwise, would you guys think you really would have played the side quests if they didn't have a monetary incentive?
I think some of the side quest stuff is interesting. Like even the unique ones, like the one,
Red
like
one.
the what's it called? The main one, the one with Julius.
I forget what they called them.
Something of Kresnik.
Yeah.
Something like that. But,
Is Lost Lake? Because I'm still remembering.
No, it's just the name of the quest. It's not named.
Okay.
So, like,
They're kind of like the main
spoiler culture.
Yeah, but a lot of the quests are kind of MMO-ish, where it's like kill this amount of enemies or get me this many items. So those aren't very interesting. But
the ones that are interesting, the ones that are crafted to be interesting, I think they are interesting because they do a lot of world building or character building, and that's really cool.
I think the best rewards from side quests are Xillia orb things. What extractors?
Yeah, the extractors.
Yeah, so you get better ones from doing them. That like rather than having getting 1 point per point in an element, now you can get it in like 3 different elements, or you can maybe get one that doubles the amount of points, or things like that.
Yeah.
So those ones, a lot of them, you can get some of them from bosses and chests, but you get some from the quest too. So
I think the most annoying thing from the debt system was that Nova kept calling every single time you had a certain...
Yeah. Now,
we have your wallet surrounded.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Now, I didn't think it was all too, I guess, intrusive, because I just... Normally, like, when I finish a chapter and to continue to the next, you have to pay a certain amount of money. Like, there's always, like, a new Gigano monster to fight, and now... I always thought those were kind of fun because they're kind of like extra boss battles, except most of them were kind of pushovers, even on a higher difficulty. But those gave you a lot of money.
Oh, there were certain bosses in the main chapters that were assholes, dude.
Right, yeah. But anyways...
They're real assholes.
just quickly, usually by fighting the newest Gigano monster, or I guess they're called elite monsters now. I don't know why they stopped calling them Giganto, because that's what they were called in Vesperia, but...
they're called elite monsters now.
Yeah, but anyways, just fighting that and usually fulfilling some of the quests that like items that I already kind of collected just by playing. Usually I had enough money to continue fairly readily. So, but it might depend on how much you just kind of blitz through areas and how much you actually fight battles that you kind of come across. So, but yeah, in terms of Nova calling, whenever she called, I would just kind of put like a large amount of gold towards the dead amount. That way,
she stopped calling.
That way, it'd be a while before she called again. So that wasn't. I mean, I guess I'm kind of indifferent on that system. Like, I'm not going to say, "Wow, this was a good idea," but it's like I didn't think it really ruined anything. Just kind of, I guess that's how this game works. So.
I mean, I understand some of the design ideas behind why they put it. I just don't think they did it the best way.
No, it totally breaks up the pace way too much in certain parts of the game, too, especially in the beginning, where that's mainly the main goal for about, 4 or 5 chapters?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah. I understand, like, even trying to tie it in narratively, I was like, okay, whatever.
That was kind of weird how it's just, like, at the beginning of the game,
nonchalantly.
Like, oh, you got injured, and you don't really even see it.
Yeah,
like,
you don't even know what he got injured on, but or the capacity he was injured.
And I healed you, and you don't see any of that. And then it's like, oh, now you owe me a bunch of money.
Yeah,
and then
and apparently Jude doesn't have a debt. I was like, what? Like,
yeah, and also the fact that actually I probably shouldn't mention anything for spoilers, but anyways, it's just that it doesn't really fit it just kind of feels like they arbitrarily, like, oh, we want to implement a dead system, so let's just kind of throw it in, you know? It just kind of, it does feel a little awkward in terms of, I guess, how it fits with the story.
I did enjoy the overall narrative of Xillia 2, and I think that's actually one of the standouts. I know, Adam, you don't feel as strongly about the story that I really
couldn't care about anything until about chapter 11 and 12. I'm like, okay, now there's some dynamics here that are actually, you know, interesting and worth paying attention to. But then after that, it kind of, you know, I kind of lost interest again as things got a little bit more trite. And then it kind of ended, like, oh, okay. Yeah. So I didn't really, I don't really put too much value on narrative anyway for these types of games, but it definitely didn't capture me all too much. Except for, I do think 11 and 12 are definitely the strongest chapters. So.
What did you think, Darren, about the story of Xillia 2, just in general?
Well, I've played a lot of Tales games. I've played all of them at some point or another, and so I can pretty much immediately guess what's going to happen in each game just by seeing a character. I can see a character and go, okay, he's the traitor archetype. That guy will be the secret villain. That guy will be this. So I always, some way or another, kind of figure out what's going to happen.
Games?
Yeah.
Well, Tales games, just in JRPGs in general.
Yeah.
You can, like, guess.
Tales games especially
evil
are
butler,
known for cliches.
probably a bad guy.
That the guy with the lightning bolt eyebrows might not be the best guy to trust right away, you know? But, but, like, the story, it's weaker in the beginning, especially, just because the debt's the whole payoff for it. But then eventually, once you get to, like, the chapter 10 or 11, it definitely picks up. Once you do, I don't know if I should say it, but, dimension hopping.
I think that's the premise of the game. So
I don't know if, because that doesn't really happen until, like, chapter 6, I think.
Right, but I think that's one of the, I don't think that's necessarily a spoiler because, like, that's the whole premise of the game. Yeah. But I think part of what makes Xillia 2 interesting is because there's a lot of dimension hopping, and it's sort of like time traveling in a way because you get to see a lot of the what if, could be scenarios that you know Xillia 1 treaded upon, like what would happen, say, I'm trying to like say one instance, like let's say if Jude wasn't born, what would that world look like? Like, how would that impact the rest of, like, the Xillia 1 story in general? Like, stuff like that is very interesting. You get to see, that scenario, but more importantly, you get to see how, like, the characters in that world cope with that knowledge. Like, oh, they enter a world and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm a completely different person, or this person that is my best friend is not my best friend, apparently. So it's just... Yeah. It's just a very interesting dynamic, just from even the side story stuff, like the character episodes.
Those side stories were arguably like the best part of the game too. Like a lot of those side stories had some of the most interesting and thought-provoking parts of it.
Are we talking about the character quests?
Yeah.
For the character chapters and all that.
Right, like specifically like Alvin. If you get to know Alvin throughout the entirety of Xillia 1 and you come into Xillia 2, like he struggles being like trying to be a good person, but at the same time he knows like. In Olympias in general, like it's really hard to live by a very white moral code, you know, like so he struggles being in the gray, but I think it's very interesting how they go about doing it.
Now, I guess another aspect of the story that's new to Xillia 2 in this series anyway is that Ludger cannot talk, or he's not very talkative at all.
That's actually some of the localization change I feel like that was made is that he talks a lot more frequently in this one than he does in...
Well, sorta. If you count him saying, like, okay...
Interesting.
Yeah. So, obviously lots of RPGs have a silent protagonist, like Persona and Ys come to mind.
There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, but I think it just feels different in Tales for two reasons. One... how the games are very cinematic, kind of recently anyway, in general, and also the whole skit idea, like this party interaction, like any skits with Ludger, which is a lot of them. It's just like it just feels so weird how they're kind of talking around him, and of course the way the game gets around this is that Ludger when he does talk, quote, you get to choose what he says. But I still felt that it never really felt right to me.
It's like a Western RPG is how they do that when you have an option, but your main character, the guy you made, doesn't really talk.
Yeah.
It's
well,
so odd.
I don't think it's so much that, because with Western RPGs, they're really, they don't have a defined character. They're sort of a blank slate, and you can sort of craft them into what you want. With Luger, I feel like there's a definite like characterization they had in mind, and you can see it, but he doesn't portray it because they want that agency. They want your agency to be there. So it's like two contradictory characters like being put into one body.
It makes it look like the main character is an idiot. When he's like, well, you going to talk or something, or are you going to just sit there like an idiot?
And also, I'm not going to be specific because of spoilers, but there's like one small scene later in the game where it's like, man, I wish he could talk. So, like, it just seems like it would have been better if he did. Like, I don't think the game gained anything, really, by implementing this choice system. Like, I would argue that it takes away from the game rather than, being useful or interesting at all. So. Might
as well get rid of the voice acting while you're at it.
Well, apparently, the crazy thing is, apparently in New Game Plus, he does have a voice.
In the skits portion, like in the places where you can choose, but still, even then, that's not good.
I haven't played. Why not go the full mile if it's there?
I haven't played New Game Plus, but isn't it all it is in the second time through is like when you make a choice, in the first time through it just kind of like, highlights that, oh, this is the choice you selected, but in the second time through it just highlights and then he'll actually voice that line.
Yes, that's how it is. And I think that's a last minute decision. I think I remember when Xillia 2 was being ready for...
Breaking news. I just want to point this out, guys. The PR guy from Atlas just posted a tweet saying that Shin Megami Tensei 4 has been delayed to late October in Europe.
November.
There you go. It was supposed to be September. Now late October. Sorry, guys, in Europe.
No.
Europeans got to be pissed at Atlas. Like,
pissed at Nintendo for making a region-locking system, but that's...
Well, that's true. That too, but like... It just... Anyways.
That entire situation is just a shit show in general.
Yeah, it was supposed to be summer, then it delayed it, but, continue on, guys. Sorry, just want to throw that out there.
I think we've touched on most aspects of Xillia 2.
Speaking of Atlas, though, there was another...
Big news with the recent Sony conference that actually happened yesterday. They had their big Pre-TGS conference where they announced a bunch of games for Japan, since that system seems to be struggling a bit there. Persona 5.
Yeah,
we showed the main character
logo ever.
Yeah,
Personas.
I thought it was kind of funny how like immediately after the announcement, like people are photoshopping it to be like a racing game.
That is so terrible. I have seen logos worse. I haven't seen logos that bad since I don't know.
Well, anyways,
somebody pointed out it actually looks like the Blu-ray logo.
Sort of.
It does.
Red Ray.
What?
Like Blu-ray. The background was red. The background was red, so it's Red Ray. No?
Shut up.
Yeah, shut up.
I thought that was fun.
So anyway, while it wasn't a lot of news, they announced that it's coming to PlayStation 4.
That's everyone who I knew wanted to play that game. Is like, but I got a PS4. It's going to be. Right. It feels a lot different than it used to, where people were hesitant to get a PS3. People seem to be jumping into the next generation because they're hungry. So it's good that they're doing it.
That they announced the PS4 version, because long while back when we heard rumors about this game, one of the reasons why it was delayed so much was because they were trying to get a next gen port of Persona 5 working. But then when they announced it, they just announced it straight up for the current gen. I'm like, so I guess they couldn't get it working, so they just canned it altogether.
Yeah, now they got that Sega money.
They must have figured it out. That's what I heard, is that they had issues with the PS4 version, so they cut it. But now I guess they figured it out, or decided to fake it.
Or they think they can make it. They think they can make it in time for the 2015 release. It's really funny, actually, because when they first announced it, this was for winter 2014. Granted, with that
so they had to delay it slightly.
Yeah.
So,
and you kind of hope that Namco is considering that for Hysteria too. I want them to consider it, even if they may not do it. I would like to see it.
For the PS3, then they're going to have a director's cut for the PS4.
So yeah, there's a lot of Japanese games kind of like moving to PS4, and while like they might not be like as visually impressive as like Western games at this point, like even like Compile Heart, has a couple games coming out on PS4, and now Persona, and then the East game was also announced at the conference. That
Disgaea 5,
huge,
yeah,
huge.
Disgaea 5,
It's never going to come out here, but it's huge.
Yeah, so there's a lot of games that are kind of moving to PS4, and we'll talk about some of them maybe. But now like Xillia is announced for PS3, and that's really one of the only ones. It's one of the furthest out ones.
I think that one will easily get ported to the PS4.
Well, yeah, maybe in like a director's cut, like they do for Tales sometimes.
They
all the time.
Well, Xillia and Xillia 2 never got a director's version.
Oh, that's because Xillia 2 is the director's cut of Xillia 1.
I have heard people say that Xillia 2 kind of feels like a mod. The fact that the way that it uses everything, it's just a mod.
Yeah. It was kind of funny, the games that they kind of just, fired out there during the conference, like Fairy Fencer F is getting a PS4 game. Like, it's not even out here yet. It's
just like an Oprah show, like, you get a PS4 game and you get a...
I think a lot of the interesting portion is that these are PS4 Vita games. They're not...
That's...
Right.
Well, that was just Ease.
No.
Like God Eater 2, actually. No, God Eater 2 was that.
It was God Eater. It was,
yeah, there were a few other ones.
It's still big. They're still willing to go that extra mile to release the game on the PS4. It shows how confident they are.
I don't
instead
think
of just making an exclusive game.
I think it's trying to eat costs is what it is, because they know they know the install base for both the Vita and the PS4 is small, but combined it's actually quite sizable enough to make a profit. So what they do is they make a game that's compatible for both the Vita and the PS4, announce it, and you're gonna make a net profit.
Well, you're making a small example though. The PS3 and PS4 should be the one we're looking at, because that means that instead of releasing Persona 5 only on the
I think
I'm talking about games that have Vita and PS4.
We know that the Japanese market has been kind of slow on the PS4 uptake, and I mean this is kind of. Even though it might still be slow, this is kind of what they needed. Like, okay, now there's some games coming out for PlayStation 4, even if a lot of them are cross-gen or have a Vita version, and not all of them, but I think, like, at least there's something for people to buy in Japan on PlayStation 4 now. And
you're sure that Sony has is a big reason for that. I'm sure they're, shaking hands behind closed doors to make certain that it's getting bigger. I mean, they've been announcing those games. Really? Isn't like Yakuza 0 cross-gen 2? Like it's all.
Now, what about Dragon Quest? Was that PS4 only, or is
that was cross-gen?
Okay,
yeah,
I forgot.
Dragon Quest.
So they're trying to eat costs. They can't make a game solely for the PS4. So they make it cross-gen
for now.
Give people to start out. Yeah. And it gives the people option, dude. If you want to buy a PS4 version, you can buy the PS4 version. But if you release it just for the PS4, they're not going to make money off of it. There's no way.
They make it an option, and that's better than no option.
I just think that it speaks more to the overall picture that they're willing to step out of making an exclusive game and willing to jump into the next current generation. I think it is big because they can stick to what they've been doing all this time, or they can move ahead and try to make for new consoles. Because it took a long time the last time for that to happen.
So another game they announced I mentioned it earlier, was the Yeast game, which they teased that for a while, and
we saw some really nice concept art.
Yeah. Now it looks a lot like Yeast 7 and Yeast Memories of Celta. Or Celta. Now it does.
Which was a great looking game, by the way.
Are you being serious or not?
No, I'm not being serious.
So yeah,
actually, Celta looks better than the PS4 game.
Yeah, well, it doesn't have an official title yet, but I guess it is for PlayStation 4 and PlayStation Vita. So I wonder if it was kind of a Vita game, and then they just kind of like decided, because Celta was a Vita game, but that one, I believe, was basically it was originally PSP, and they kind of switched it. So I wonder if this one was supposed to be like a true Vita game, and then they kind of
up-resed it.
Yeah, for PS4, which is, I guess, fine.
Understandable.
Now, and it looks a lot like 7 and Celta, so it's got the party system and things like that. So I'm excited for it, even if it doesn't, it's not a visual, standout. But,
Yeah.
Yeah, those games have never been like the visual tour de force.
Right.
Not fun.
Yeah,
And
you don't play Ys games for the...
Right, they're fast and fun, great soundtracks, and now Adult can jump again.
Yay!
Yeah.
Yay!
I think it'll be interesting just to see how the game will play outside of the combat, because this is designed for both Vita and
how they structure it. I mean, like Memories of Celceta. I mean, it was basically like the whole game was in like a giant forest, and you kind of just go from like city to city, but like all the kind of there was a couple of dungeons, but like a lot of it took place in like this similar type forest area.
Right, it was just a large open world. It actually felt like sort of Metroidvania in a sense.
Kinda, right, because you got new characters with new abilities to like open up.
That's kind of how the Ys games have always been, though.
Right.
It's been like one central location and you go around it pretty much, like the towers, stuff like that.
So anyways, I'm excited for it.
Mm-hmm. More Ys is always a good thing.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to play it. I had a pretty good time with Celceta. I don't love it as much as Adam does, but I'm pretty excited for the content.
I didn't love it that much. I thought it was pretty good.
I'm the one who reviewed it, by the way. But yeah, it's never going to come here, but I'm excited.
Why not? All the other ones have.
You don't think Falcom, or you don't think Xseed is going to grab it?
They're going to grab it, but you'll probably see it like in 2017.
Yeah.
Hey, it's better than our Dragon Quest situation.
It's better than Xseed releasing Trails in the Sky, right?
Well, they finally released the PC version of the first game.
Wasn't that supposed to come out last year?
Yes.
No, earlier this year.
Well, it was winter.
It was supposed to be winter 2013.
Whatever. January or something anyway. But it came out. That's all that is most important. Darren actually reviewed it. I have not played the version yet.
No,
but
I played the PSP version.
You pretty much enjoy it, though?
Oh, yeah. Darren? Oh, yeah, definitely. Because I have only played pieces of the PSP version prior, but just running it on a computer felt good. It ran well. It still looks good despite its age, and it's a good game.
Yeah, I know
Harvest Moon game, right?
Well, I know Xseed actually like changed like the fonts, and they added resolution options because it's essentially a port of the original PC release in Japan with like the localization of the PSP release plus they added tweaks to it. So that's kind of their argument for why it took so long anyway.
Yeah, well, the Falcom PC development's been dead pretty much since their latest Legend of the Heroes games because they've moved on to consoles now.
Right, yep.
Because those games are normally native to PC.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or some sort of PC engine.
I posted in our video when he said that it was much a bigger undertaking than they thought it was going to be than a simple port.
Yeah. Yeah, we actually got a comment from Xseed on the review, right? Right?
That was I compared it to Oath of Felganics. I thought it was the same engine. I did some research and it pointed to that, and it turns out it's not the case.
Misconception, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's cool that they cleared it up, though.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, Trails in the Sky does not share the same game engine as any of the Ys games. That was a rumor started way back. It uses completely original game engine all the way around. That's part of why it took so long, they said.
Mm-hmm. The new system, new engine to understand.
Yeah.
So I guess moving on, a PlayStation Vita game came out today that a lot of people that I know seem to be really excited for.
Or two.
What is that called?
Wait, what?
Oh, you mean Velocity times 2?
Yes.
No.
2X, actually, is what it is.
No.
No, not that one.
No, the one that brings you a lot of despair, David.
And the despair of seeing so many people get spoiled on Twitter is also part of it.
God.
On it.
Yeah, probably good to go on lockdown, just in general.
It's one of those games that I guess is very, I guess the way that the narrative is structured, there's lots of different things to be spoiled, so...
Yep.
It's just not, it's not like now I haven't played these DanganRonpa games. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but like...
It's good enough.
They actually say it in the title screen.
DanganRonpa. They say it like that, only better.
Actually, I played the original a couple weeks ago, beat it, and spent the whole weekend playing DanganRonpa 2. It is very much an upgrade.
Did you beat it? The sequel?
I spent like 12 hours Saturday playing it, and then I beat it on Sunday.
Oh my god. Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
8-hour game. So
Real trooper right here. Dan, where's your review?
good. The only downside I had from that is the too many mini games and stuff like that. But otherwise, the characters are way more developed, way more interesting than the first one.
I've been in this situation before where people all say like 999 as random segue here is a really good game, but I was hesitant to play that because the main gameplay is puzzles. But I know it's got a great story apparently, but that's just the gameplay didn't really appeal to me. Now I'm not really sure what the gameplay is like in DanganRonpa.
The way DanganRonpa is very atypical for a visual novel because it's a genre blender. See, have you ever played any of the Phoenix Wright games?
Nope.
Okay.
What, have you played any visual novel at all?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, that doesn't matter. So
That matters.
no, because it's not hard to understand what a visual novel is. There's a lot of text. There's sometimes other stuff going on, like puzzles, trials, stuff like that.
You have to make.
Yeah, but so with DanganRonpa, it's split into multiple sections. You got just the story sections where it's just static anime portraits talking, and then you can explore the school. At parts you explore in first person, at other parts you don't. Well, not the school, the island for the second game, but yeah, and then once a murder happens, then you have to start an investigation, which is like a point and click adventure, and then the trial happens, and it's just everything. It's like every genre combined.
It's really good. I had a really good time with it. It's kind of cool because they spend a lot of time building this foundation to care about these characters, and then they throw big old wrench into it, and you start wondering. You have a lot of time to get used to these people and get to know them, and then everything kind of falls apart, but in the most beautiful way.
Oh yeah, Adam, you've played Persona 4, obviously, right? Or maybe not obviously, but there's also things that are very similar to social links, where you just talk to characters. The difference is they might not be around by the next chapter because they'll be dead. So yeah, so it's like kind of, as Zach said, kind of throws a wrench in that by giving you despair for it.
That's part of the fun as well, is that you don't know who's going to stay and who's going to go, and so you're just trying to figure out, okay, do I want to spend a lot of time with this person, or do I want to just, give up here and move on to someone I'm pretty confident that person's going to be around because they seem important. But the cool thing is you build these social links, quote unquote, and then if you build them up enough, you fill in their report card is what they kind of put it. Here it's hope fragments in this game. If you spend a lot of time, they unlock skills that you can use while you're battling in the courtroom that helps a lot, slows down the time or just completely diminishes anything.
This is just a series that's very hard to explain because it's really something you have to play to understand because just hope fragments and learning skills and trials doesn't really tell you much.
It's the basic way to explain it is that you get the relationship building in Persona 4 with the courtroom drama that's in Phoenix Wright, because you have to do a lot of cases, rebuttals. You got to.
Did you ever play any of the Layton games, Adam?
Nope.
Okay.
So that's probably my one reason why I'm hesitant is I don't know. I'm not familiar with these style of games.
Do you enjoy reading text for story? Do you enjoy good stories at all?
I haven't read my reading nowadays usually comes in the form of
academia, right?
Yeah, academia, right.
I really don't know what Adam would think of it. It's interesting.
I would say watch someone play it, the first chapter, the prologue and the first chapter. Watch someone else play it, and you'll figure it out.
I think if he likes Persona 4 Golden, he would, or the story of Persona 4 Golden, he would enjoy DanganRonpa.
Even that might be a reach. I don't know. DanganRonpa is really distinct. Do you
like the writing in Persona 4 Golden? Do you like the narrative in general, of just reading text while shit is going on?
I guess I don't want to go off into a tangent here, but I think a lot of the character interactions in Persona 4 are pretty good, but the actual structured plot line is kind of boring.
I think we're trivializing it by keeping on comparing it to Persona 4 Golden when it's definitely not that type of game. It's a lot of high school students being trapped on this island, basically, and that they're trying to
well, you're talking about the actual
stuff.
story. I'm more talking about the actual design and structure of the game. Like,
it is day-to-day structure, for sure.
But it's different, because, I mean, Danganronpa is a lot more over the top than even Phoenix Wright, which is over-the-top court simulator. And, like, the day-to-day life, it like, plays on anime tropes, but kind of turns them on their heads once cool stuff goes on.
And the coolest thing about it is that it really does test your brain power quite a bit when you're going through those court cases, because a lot of it is trying to pick away at people's arguments and finding out the weaknesses and the contradictions and things like that. And so trying to work that through while talking to some people that you were just buddy with just moments ago, it creates this kind of push and pull inside your head that I think really gives that game a nice bump here.
From what I gather, like, this game, like, it's kind of wacky. I mean, you can just tell that from the trailers.
See, it's both wacky, but it's not
so tense. Like,
Yeah, it's. I wouldn't call it necessarily wacky. It's more just high drama. It's bizarre.
No,
I mean, I can call it bizarre. It's saying wacky just makes it seem like cartoonish.
No, I would say partially wacky, but like not consistent in tone, which is one of the reasons I love it. Because like people treat the deaths like the horrifying events they are, but it's all very.
I can say this without a shadow of a doubt. Like, there are a couple moments playing Danganronpa 2. It destroys you. Like, there's some parts in there that I was, like, literally in tears watching this stuff unfold, because it's so heavy when they show it, and you're seeing this person, you're like, oh my god, look at the look in their eyes, their face, everything. And it's so dramatic. And knowing that happened, especially, it's like watching Battle Royale, you know, just seeing these kids, like,
it's worse than Battle Royale and more emotional, honestly.
Well, because in Battle Royale, it's straight out just, you know, murder. And this, it's more, you know, you get to know these characters a lot better.
Logical. It's like seeing people's insecurities once they break because of the shitty situation they've been put in. It's like, I mean, wacky is a word I might use for like some aspects of the game, like Monokuma. He's wacky as hell, but he's wacky in a disturbing way. He's a Joker type character.
I think there's like a strange dichotomy of where like in a normal situation it would rub off as funny, but because the situation they're actually in is very dire.
Yeah.
There is that dichotomy of extremes where it's extremely humorous, but at the same time it's also extremely like disastrous.
Yeah, and the best part, I think what Danganronpa nails is the pacing, because they do an incredible job not overstaying its welcome in certain parts. Like they move on, you know, they don't stick around too long. They don't like, hey, you know, shouldn't you be feeling bad? No, they got to move on. And you see like a logical step by step about how someone could start to question everything, because they provide things like motives for why you'd want to, you know, kill another person, you know, and it's these things they introduce, these motives that you can kind of see, like, this is horrible. I can kind of see why this person
it's like
would
horrible but
shit.
Sympathetic.
Yeah, every character is like you don't. There's no good and evil in this game except for Monokuma, of course.
Yeah.
But he's kind of like Joker, you know. He's just in there to see the world burn, and he's caught in the middle. He doesn't. He's not causing these things. He steps back. He gives these rules to provide some structure, but that's it. You know, they do the damage themselves.
He's the one that's trying to get everyone to kill each other, but he's not doing it directly.
Yeah, exactly. They're the ones doing it. Like, they're the ones committing the worst possible human act. You know, it's killing one other person.
Yeah, it's all very crazy.
It's impressive how they can pull that off, especially in a video game format. Like, even if it's a visual novel for the most part, it's the cool thing about this one is that they also have RPG elements like character progression for doing things like talking to people and looking around the environment and things like that. That made the sequel, I think, is much better than the first one.
Yeah, definitely.
One thing I've heard is that this game is longer than the first.
It's about the same. It's like most adventure games are about 25 hours. I beat this game at about 28.
See, I have my it says like 32 on my clock, but I also really took my time with it. I talked to everyone multiple times and stuff.
I probably maxed out like 3 or 4 relationships, and that's by and that was sticking to it the entire time.
I didn't max out a single one in my main playthrough. Everyone was dying.
That's the thing. I mean, there's also different difficulty levels and other things that can extend the gameplay, and they also have other game modes and other like extra content.
Yeah, like island mode. That's where you're supposed to max out your social links because you don't know who's going to die in the main game.
If you want to go that route, I mean, I think that part of the fun is just figuring out who you want to spend your time with.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, like, afterwards.
Are the characters more interesting in this game?
Yes, definitely.
Yes, they're very much more interesting. They're very much more.
They're also more sympathetic because, like in the first game, I feel like there were
some assholes.
There was assholes, but there was people that you didn't really care if they died, which seems kind of callous a little bit, but it's like you didn't care.
In the first game, there were like the social links. They tried to make some of them sympathetic, but then they would say something stupid or do something stupid to really make you like, you know what, fuck this guy. In the first game,
you mean like fuck Togami all the time?
What?
Yakuya? I'm talking about like.
But yeah, kind of.
But no, it's some of the characters in DanganRonpa are way. In the first one, were way over the top, and the ones I'm talking about. In this one, a lot of the characters seem a lot more human, a lot more like people you would kind of know, like you would know this person, and way more than the first one.
So like more like a character and less like a caricature.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't know if I would say that. I feel like they're still caricatures. They're just more developed, where you know where their bizarre personalities are coming from.
Exactly.
And once you learn that, you can believe it. Like, I mean, I don't want to give anything away, but one character. Actually, you know what? I can't even say anything without.
No, yeah, don't. This game hinges on its story, but I would say this: you need to play the first one before you play the second one.
Yeah,
like don't try to skip into this. I know someone who covered this game that tried to play the second one, and he's like, it was fun, but I was like, all these references I don't really get. It's because you have a much better understanding of the plot. And knowing what you're going to get yourself into if you play the first one. So
you got to play the first one.
Definitely got to play
the first one. Is great too.
Yeah, first one I had a third. I like Virtue's Last Reward more, but I definitely enjoyed DanganRonpa like in its own way because I see a lot of comparisons between the two, and they are similar in a way, but they're also very different in
They're
tone.
really not very comparable beyond the same genre and a similar setting.
Right.
I mean, they're
very different in tone. The characters are much different.
Yeah. Presentation-wise.
So
stuff like that.
Yeah, but I think for the most part, though, I was very pleasantly surprised. I mean, I have owned DanganRonpa since it came out, but then I never played it until recently because I was like, well, the sequel's coming out, might as well give it a try. And I sink a lot of time into playing those games, like almost nonstop. Like any free time I had, I played that game, and I got completely lost in it.
It's a time
I'm
sink.
excited for that, and I hope that they bring another episode.
They're probably. You know what the guy who did the writing for that said that another episode is probably his best game.
Oh man!
And he doesn't know.
It's like a third-person shooter. It's so weird.
Which is why I'm curious what he means by that. So, I mean, I hope it comes over.
This is my most important question: digital or physical?
Doesn't matter.
Well, I do digital just because I don't care.
I mean, I got digital for the review copy, but I also got the limited edition because I'm a fanboy. So, yeah.
And I got it too, but it's honestly. There's never really been an issue with like load times and things like that where it makes a big difference. So like those games, they have their own fast travel, but this game encourages walking around to build up that experience meter, and so it doesn't make a big difference. It seems more obviously it's more open. The maps are way more open, and there's more places to explore. But yeah, it's not going to make a difference.
Yep.
So, yeah, but, moving on from that, you guys can check out the review on the site. Yeah. David, of course.
One of few perfect stores on RPG.
Spoilers.
Oh, sorry.
10 out of 10.
Yeah, it's a 10 out of 10.
Damn it, we try to keep ourselves away from those.
We do, and I should not have given the first one a 10 out of 10 because I should have given this one a 10 out of 10 instead, which I did.
You can give both games 10 out of 10.
Yeah, but retrospectively, I would say the first one's a 9 out of 10 for me now.
I don't
because
know.
this one was way too
they
good.
both have the, but I would say they're both definitely games that anyone who's into story-based adventures or story-driven games, definitely check those out.
Okay.
They're very fascinating to play. Even if you're not too into that type of design, it's definitely something at least to keep a look at if it's ever on sale. But definitely, that review's on the site. It's spoiler-free. I actually had to proofread that, and I never played the game, and I still came away not knowing anything that happened in that game.
Yeah, no, I kept it very spoiler-free.
Yeah, we got the game for review, and they specifically said, hey, don't get past Chapter 1, because everything goes down after that, and that's the same as the first one, so.
Yeah.
So, yeah, moving on from that, though, another big announcement, Nintendo announced that they're making a new 3DS. And literally calling it the new 3DS.
Yep. That's going to be really awkward 10 years from now. Like, did you ever get a new 3DS? Like, oh yeah, I still have my old new 3DS.
Buy me the new 3DS?
I still have my old new 3DS sitting around.
Someone mentioned this before. Why is Sony like the only one who doesn't completely mess up on their names?
There's no way they're going to call it that in America, right? Like,
they are. They're totally going to do it.
That announcement was for America as well, wasn't it?
Right? Yeah.
I mean, it was.
They called it. Like, yeah, because they have, like, the Japan and the American, but they're calling, like, the Super Smash Brothers for the Nintendo 3DS. That is what they're calling it. For the Nintendo
Sony problems. There's a 3DS, there's a 3DS XL, there's the 2DS, and now there's the 3DS bullshit.
And the 2DS is not getting the refresh. It's the new 3DS and the new 3DS XL.
There's so many different...
Well, then now the next thing they're going to announce is the new 2DS.
God. Well, anyway, so the new 3DS, there's a couple big changes. One is that it's got a new CPU, so it's more capable. It's got a wider 3D viewing angle. They added the ZL and ZR, which, it actually makes it as many inputs as the Wii U gamepad. So people were talking about how, you could theoretically see being able to play 3DS games on the Wii U, that kind of thing. What else? They moved the stuff to the bottom, like the power button and the game slot are on the bottom of the 3DS now.
And then the
dimensions are slightly bigger.
And there's also going to be some games that are only playable on it, right?
Yeah.
Like they imported Xenoblade, or they're going to port.
It doesn't look that good, but
yeah,
it looks like ass.
It looks pretty not good.
The audio is definitely going to be shit. There's no way
out
audio
next
is
year.
not going to be shit.
It's out next year, and so you kind of wonder how that's going to be. I mean, Darren, did you take a look at that?
Oh, yeah. I saw it. I already with the name alone, I was like, okay, whoever's naming stuff over at Nintendo needs to be brought out back and dealt with.
Yes.
But seeing Xenoblade on it and seeing a direct comparison, and then I actually after I saw the stream or the announcement, I immediately went and popped in Xenoblade and just looked at it. I'm like, yeah, I thought so. And the textures look so much worse.
They changed the UI. I saw they moved the stuff to the bottom of the screen as well to make it fit.
Yeah, I don't see the point. I would have preferred an HD version, honestly. And I think it would have been better if maybe they made a new Xenoblade or something around this, or like a side story or something.
It makes you wonder how much Nintendo really hedges its bets on Xenoblade in the first place. Well, it's like, well, we got this. I guess we got to, do something with it. Someone brought this up, and I kind of laughed. It's like, it's gone from being a GameStop exclusive over here to being a new 3DS exclusive. It's just like, they can never win.
No.
The audience keeps on shrinking for that title, I guess. But, I mean, a lot of people will buy the new 3DS because it goes backwards compatible. Everyone keeps, comparing that to the DSi. It's like, the DSi, the exclusive games were mostly the ones that use that camera. It's not like the new 3DS where it's got a better processor. It's like a refresh where they're going to be making more games for that. Nintendo said they're going to make more games for it.
I think the DSi comparison is probably the closest anyway.
It's closest, but that's like the Game Boy Color. But it's like, you can kind of see why they did that, because it's got color. But even if that seems kind of silly, I don't know. They released a Pokemon game for the Game Boy Color. It's like at that point, you know that people would be buying that if they cared enough. So, but they announced that the new 3DS. I don't think they really talked about much else. I mean, the only other news I heard out recently is that the new Xenoblade, they're going to use the gamepad as like a navigation thing. That's about it. Like, did anything else come out of that conference?
I think they gave Bayonetta a release date, but that was...
Well, that's not RPG, but
right.
That's like October. But yeah, nothing else that I can think of that came out of there. But
did they also announce Shulk for Smash Brothers there?
Oh, that
from Xenoblade.
That's right.
Yes, they did.
Everyone knew it was going to come.
That's like the only connection I have with why Xenoblade's on the new 3DS. Is that he's in Smash Brothers? Nintendo's kind of like,
use it to advertise, like they did with
people need
Fire.
to know who this guy is. Kind of like on the Fire Emblem.
Yeah,
That's that and Fire Emblem. Yeah, it's like their properties they're trying to appeal, and that's cool. I mean, I'm totally cool with that but it's and the thing is that they bring these characters back. It's like seeing like Ness in these games. Like, that's great. We put him in these games.
Or Lucas.
But you're not going to do anything about it later.
Like even when Sakurai's poking fun at Captain Falcon, he's like, "Hey, when are you going to get a new game, buddy?" Ha ha ha.
It's like, well, we put him in this game because we can't get him in his own game. It's like Donkey Kong. It took a long time for Donkey Kong to get his own game again. It's like they don't really. They're not. It's almost a little bit disrespectful, but I'm not going to be that extreme about it just because it's like. It's like that Nintendo E3 conference when some guy said, "Hey, what about Mother 3?" and then he makes him catch on fire. It's like,
Seth Green did that. Don't blame Nintendo.
Yeah, but
or maybe
they
Nintendo
signed
did that.
off
I don't know.
on it.
They would have to greenlit.
Bill Zamay did a voice on that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They come back to stuff. That's Nintendo.
I remember seeing the guy who translated Mother 3 into English, like seeing his reaction to that. He's like, Nintendo. It's like, we got this translation. We can give it to you if you want. It's there. And like hearing him say that, I'm like, oh man. But not to go off on a tangent there. But yeah, but I think that was about it for the big news for August. I mean, as you guys mentioned before, it's like. Apparently there's going to be more announcements to come at TGS, by the way, more PS4 games to be announced. There's word going out that the new 3DS may be region-free and may be changing the way that the Nintendo ID system works, but that's just a rumor for now.
Might just be hopeful,
it's
speculation.
Industry insiders.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's apparently still stuff to come. But at this point, it's like I'm excited, and they announced God Eater 2. We didn't mention that. God Eater 2 coming to PS4 as well as a remaster. So you hope that gets brought over, considering how popular that system's getting here. But
and
yeah,
Namco Bandai's been really good about their releases recently.
Yeah, they've been pumping them out.
They even got Sword Art. With its lacking translation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was sad. Oh man.
Wasn't that just straight like the Taiwanese version? They just
it
pretty much is because I have the Taiwanese version.
To it, but for the most part, I would say it pretty much is straight up like the same thing. There's some quality of life changes, but overall it's pretty much the same.
Yeah, Darren, you said you own the Taiwanese version.
I do. I got that. I imported that from PlayAsia when it originally came out, and I looked at it, and I kind of expected the game to have that kind of English translation. And then I was like, but they'll have to change it for the North American release. And when I heard they didn't, I was shocked.
Well, I think they changed it, but didn't do a very good job of it. So they took the Asian English and all right, let's just fix this up, and let's
just take out all the names and put he or she because the Taiwanese version doesn't have that.
I think the best part though is that's actually getting people to buy the game. Seeing people post pictures of the translations, that is getting people to buy it. So at the same time, it's like a double-edged sword because it's like, well, this is stupid as hell, but people think that's actually getting them to buy it, so it's like, well, I guess it's not as bad. I don't know.
I doubt it.
Well, it couldn't be dumber than the actual story of Sword Art Online anyway.
Yeah. Season 2 was pretty bad.
There's no defense for season.
There's no defense for season. They end that season by spinning in the air. That was pretty dumb. That's pretty dumb. That's like
season
like,
2.
what the hell is this? What are they even doing?
Just spinning in the air.
Just spinning in the air, just dancing.
I have no idea
like
what you're referring to.
It's like a Disney princess thing. It was the stupidest thing.
Well, does that about cover it?
I'm sorry?
Does that about cover what we wanted to talk about?
Yeah, that's about it for August. September, another big month. We just announced, there's a couple of games. We have a lot of stuff planned for the site that we're hoping to push very soon. Some big changes, but also more games to cover. So, I'm trying to remember, all the games coming out. We got Honor Surge is coming out.
Lots of Japanese games.
Huh?
Lots of Japanese games.
A lot of Japanese games coming out.
There's Fairy Fencer. There's Natural Doctrine, which was just announced to be pushed back a week. And in terms of Western games, I guess there's Shadow of Mordor at the very end of the month, which is sort of RPG-ish.
And Persona 4 Arena, the sequel kind of thing.
Ultimax.
Yeah, Ultimax.
We may cover that for the site, just because it actually has a lot of story stuff in it, as you can imagine. But, that's coming out later. Theater Rhythm is coming out this month, and I'm really excited to try that myself. But that and Wasteland 2, I don't know if we'll cover that. But, yeah, there's a lot of games coming out this month. We're going to get a lot of articles on. We posted August was probably our busiest month that we've had in a long time. Probably since ever at this point. We posted the most reviews we've had in a long time. So check those out for sure. And then, stay tuned. We're having a lot of changes on the site, so expect that to be pushed very shortly. Well, I guess it depends on how quickly he wants to push it out, but we'll see. So, other than that, anything else you guys want to talk about, or is that about it?
That's about it, I think.
About it. All right, we're about covered. So, thanks a lot for joining us for this month's edition of the TetraCast. I want to thank our guests, Simon, David, Adam, and Darren.
It's
good to be here.
Yep, great to be here.
Great to be here. Great to be here. It's great to have you guys.
Always great to be here because I get to be alive.
Yay! Yay, if you're alive. Now, visit this deserted island and start killing each other.
Yay!
That's how this all ends, right?
Yep.
So, all right. Thanks a lot for joining us this month's edition of the TetraCast, guys. I'll catch you all next time.
Bye!